Good afternoon, everyone. We're back for another TL Talk, my favorite day of the week, with another fantastic panel and a great topic. And I couldn't be happier to be able to share the stage, share the panel with three icons in our industry. And I wanted to firstly thank all of you that've taken some time to listen to us. If this is your first TL Talk, welcome. If this isn't, thank you for coming back. If you're a travel advisor, a hotel owner, if you work with restaurants, we've had people from all different sides of the tourism, the travel, the hospitality world and beyond. So I really, really appreciate it. It's an honor to have and to be with you on this incredible journey that has been since we started this in April. We've now hit, I think, about 42, close to 45,000 views over. This is, I think, our 21st TL Talk. For those that do not know me, my name is Tina Lira. I am the founder of TL Portfolio, which is a hotel, DMC, destination, real estate representation company. And we have offices in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, New York, and Los Angeles. So it's a pleasure to be here. I am Brazilian. My heart grew up in Mexico. I studied hospitality. First job was at the Hyatt in Paris. I fell in love and I survived with New York during 9/11 with Ritz-Carlton. That then took me to Singapore with Four Seasons. I lived in the Caribbean for 4.5 years, taking over the commercial side of Great State Club in Turks and Caicos before opening my first business out of Miami. To Brazil after 23 years abroad to manage Ponta dos Ganchos commercial side and open TL Portfolio in 2012. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panels. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you like the content, please subscribe, please share it. Our objective here is to send out a wave of positive energy, to motivate, to inspire, to bring out some light at the end of the tunnel. So the more people we hit with a positive energy, the better it is for all of us. So please do share. It's a wave that I think everybody needs now more than ever. So I'll go ahead and introduce our incredible panel. Ladies first, I'll start with Victoria Boomgarden. A face that I think doesn't need much introduction, but Victoria is president of Ellán Travel. She's had more than 40 years in the travel industry, and 5 of which she lived in Europe. She's probably one of the most connected, respected, and recognized as an advocate for professionalism in the industry and in the agency world. She has won numerous accolades amongst her peers, including multiple nominations as the most admired travel advisor in America, and serves on several prestigious industry advisory boards such as Bellman, Four Seasons, Hyatt, and many others. On January 1st, 2020, she launched her new brand, Ellán, which brings together a selection of by invitation clients with industry partners in committing to provide unparalleled travel experiences. So, Victoria, I think it goes without saying, it's an honor to have you here. We are thrilled to listen to your insights and your tips. So thank you for finding the time to join us. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure on my end. Thank you.
Another amazing woman, Erin Florio. Erin is travel news director at Condé Nast Traveler. Erin oversees the coverage of industry news and trends for the brand with a focus on hotel sustainability and destination-specific content, working across print, digital, social, and video platform. In her role, she spearheads 2 of Traveler's 3 annual tentpole franchises, including Hot List, which everybody loves, which is the year's top new hotels, and works with destinations partners to produce and host promotional videos. Prior to Condé Nast Traveler, she worked in travel journalism in both London and New York for over a decade. That can't be, you look too young. But fair enough, that's what it says. She frequently represents Traveler at major industry and thought-leading conferences around the world, including SXSW Pure, and has been featured in CBS This Morning, CNBC, Cheddar, as well as Loney and various other traveler podcasts. Erin, thank you for joining us. You're in London, and we appreciate all your contribution and you taking the time to join us.
No, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, but I'm in New York.
Oh, you're in New York. That's right. Sorry. I think we spoke at one point that you were in London. You're right. You're in New York. Ben Trodd, Senior Vice President, Sales and Hotel Marketing for Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. Ben provides leadership at Four Seasons for global hotel marketing, hotel sales, and worldwide sales offices teams. He joined Four Seasons in 1995, which means, as you can see, he spent most of his life, more than half of his life, at the Four Seasons, which is not too bad. I think that's what most people dream of. So, he's had roles in sales, marketing, operations at both the property as well as the corporate level. After opening the Four Seasons Hotel Seattle as general manager in 2009, Ben then became regional vice president and general manager of the Beverly Hills of Four Seasons Hotel. In June 2018, Ben took over the role of Senior Vice President Global Sales before adding hotel marketing in 2019. And I think one of the nicest things, Ben, is that whenever I mention your name, I always receive a huge and very genuine smile from everybody in the industry. And so that goes beyond any words I could put together. You're hugely admired by the industry with a lot of, love and genuine warmth. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think that's a reflection of operating hotels with beautiful bars in them. That made me very popular.
Maybe that does contribute to it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wanted to start in the way that we usually start, and it's a way for us to get an insight into you. Who are you as a person? How was this, wave of living in quarantine and everything we've experienced? And so maybe, Victoria, I'll start with you. Can you share with us, if you had to think about one silver lining or multiple that you want to take away from all this experience that you think you're going to embrace and carry it going down the road? And then secondly, if I bumped into you in 2022 maybe, and I said, so Victoria, how was 2020? How would you look back at it?
Well, yes, it's been an unbelievable year. Let's start with that, right? And have we been impacted? Without a doubt. Was launching a new business in January 1 of 2020 a brilliant move? Maybe not, but looking back on it, I think I was actually getting ready without knowing it for a pandemic, just by focusing more on what is it that brings you joy? How do you slow it down? And so during these last 6 months, what I have enjoyed, and if you can look at the background where I am, I'm in rural Wisconsin. It's where I grew up. It's a place I vowed on my knees to never come back when I left for college. And I have been here very close to my 6 brothers and 91-year-old mother during this whole time. And what I've taken the time to do is, what I do love is writing, telling stories, connecting more closely, connecting more deeply. And that's what I've been able to do. And so the travel stories, our blogs that we've been writing have connected. And I haven't aimed those just toward travelers. It's been toward colleagues, friends, family, clients, everyone. We're in this together and pulling us all through. And I can tell you the connections have never been deeper. I know who's been sequestering where. I know more about their families. Maybe I didn't have time before and I only dealt with the PAs, or I dealt with whomever, or delegated to someone else. Well, you don't get those chances to have a do-over many times. And I will say that's what I'll remember most, is this connection between all of us. And I think one of the favorite things that I wrote down to make sure that I didn't, that is go deeper, for the happiness. We're community, not competitors. And I want to remember that. That's what I want to look at for the moving forward.
That's such a strong message, and I think we're all living it at some level. And I have to appreciate with you, this is my happy place. This is when I go through hard times. I grew up coming here to the beach, and I remember during 9/11, and I close my eyes and I go to my happy place. Now, not in my wildest dreams did I think I'd spend half a year living here. This is that place you go to when you're lucky. So right. There is definitely a silver lining there for sure. Erin, give us a glimpse into your quarantine silver lining reality.
A glimpse into my quarantine silver lining reality. Yeah, I think what Victoria said is interesting because she spoke immediately about going home. And one thing that I think myself, this wasn't in my intro, my setup, but I am also a fellow sort of, I had a globe-trotting upbringing as well. I grew up all over the world, and I have a very sort of unique view of what I consider home. And what I've realized, travel professional and non-travel professional, but what I've realized and what other travelers have realized, I think, is that, where you really want to go to when you can't get back there is home. And this really sort of important idea of being able to return to the people that you are closest to and love and the places that matter the most. I mean, I think we spend so much time exploring the places we haven't been yet, which of course we all love. And I think I'm certainly addicted to doing that. But there's something that's like surfaced during quarantine that's really made you appreciate those places you already know and those places you'd really like to return to. And I think that's a really nice takeaway that this entire community has come to realize during quarantine.
Yeah, no, collaboration. I think it's key, right? I think it's what Victoria said. And it's amazing. In our US office, we have partnered up with 4 other rep companies to create this festival-like event that's going to take place in October with really 4 incredible rep companies that we, usually would look at as competitors. And now we've united forces. And it's so beautiful to see that, RepFest is going to happen in October. And it's amazing to think, look, what a beautiful energy that came from, the pandemic. So there are strong silver linings, and it's going to change the way we do things. Ben, tell us a little bit about your reality.
Yeah, I think as with most of us who spend their entire life in the travel industry traveling, there was certainly an opportunity to spend more time at home and to really sort of become more grounded and spend more time with family. Perhaps in some ways to also really appreciate some of the beautiful places we actually call home and don't get to spend time there. I live in a beautiful little beach town near LA, and it's a great place. You start to really appreciate that more when you can spend a little more time there, but also connecting to a much deeper level with family and really making sure that the most important things are more apparent in your life. When I think sometimes we become a little bit into a routine that's difficult to sustain, and just to have a chance to kind of do a little bit of a reset. I think that's certainly the silver lining. I think there's also lots and lots of challenges and lots of stories and very personal stories. Our business is a people business, and just feeling the hardship that people have gone through, as difficult as that is. But it also brings out the compassion and the care of so many of the people that we work with. And I find that very reassuring to see that in action, even in a time when nobody is really winning right now. And nobody has capacity to sort of be overly generous just because they can. But everybody is able to kind of come together to achieve that. So that's certainly the silver lining. I hope that we look back in 2020 and look at it as a time that we started a journey to make the travel industry more sustainable. Fewer trends that we rely on for the livelihoods of so many people, but yet we know they're not good for the planet. They're not sustainable in the long term. They're not good for individuals, or in some cases, and very sort of currently right now, maybe they're not effective representations of the demographics of our world, and we're not truly represented equally. So I hope we see 2020 as a bit of it was broken, so we had to change it after the 10 years of sustained growth. Which is always a difficult time to put change into play. So I hope we look back at it like that, and certainly that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah, I just want to say I think that's a really good point. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, one of the positives that I've noticed from the industry during this time, which has obviously been very difficult, is that it's really been a forced catalyst for things that we probably always wanted to do in the industry, that we knew the industry would probably get around to doing, but it's really excellent. And we have been able to see it as an opportunity to focus on what's really important. And you see that across the board, from maybe those hotel practices, as Ben would probably be closer to the ways various destinations can sort of catch their breath again and figure out how to reach that demographic that they think they've been missing. Even solve problems like over tourism. Bali shutting down to Australian visitors, Venice not having visitors. It's a negative in the immediate, but if properly managed, it's really a positive. And I think that's a really important industry, instead of running away and hiding and not sort of being at the front and center of everything going on, has the players in the industry that have really come forward and said, this is what we're doing, this is what we're changing. We know this is difficult. It's difficult for you. It's difficult for us. We are bringing in new health and safety measures. We are going to change our policies of how guests and staff interact. We are going to change our booking policies. All of those changes or just open communication that the industry has had with the audience makes a huge difference. What people need right now is trust. And it may sound counterintuitive to an extent, but even when people are coming out, the industry is coming out and saying, we don't have all the answers yet, but we're working on it and we are dedicated to doing this and making this environment for you, it makes people feel better than when they're not seeing what people are doing. You trust what you can see. So it's really about being very, very transparent and acknowledging to the audience that you also understand the issues going on and you're doing everything to fix them. That is what's going to make people feel better about traveling. And just, sorry, very quickly, I know I'm sort of going on, but outside of this whole health and safety conversation that we seem to be having all the time, which is important, but also a little tedious at times, I think the industry has done a phenomenal job and really highlighting those stories where they've really embraced the community and shown support in their community and shown how they've redefined what hospitality actually means. I mean, Four Seasons was one of the first to, host first responders in New York City. When you keep hearing stories like that, that too, has such a strong effect on brand importance and building traveler trust. And I think seeing the way the industry has come out to really support the community has been very, very, a really, really smart move for them.
And just to add to that, as we start to really study and get insight around consumer sentiment, it's really important.
Years and big and small, that sometimes philosophy and has done amazing work. Maybe this is the time to do it. Just accept, look, it wasn't something that we had the energy, but look what we're doing now. Look at how we've changed. Look at what we're investing in. That's okay too. Like admitting and then changing. You look at Aspen when it came out with its amazing message regarding diversity, saying our mountain is not diverse, our the skiers are not diverse, and that's not okay, and we acknowledge and we're going to change it. Wow, that's powerful, that's cool, that's new, that's modern. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and sorry, one last point I just want to make too is you guys mentioned before, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, and we are also seeing that industry wide. Not just in the hotel industry, but in the cruise industry. If one of them, an industry is only as strong as its weakest link right now. If there's a player involved who isn't living up to the standards that the public expects, the entire industry suffers. And it's everybody's best interest to work together, to have the brands who are normally competitors work together to collaborate and make the industry stronger and healthier. Everybody benefits. And you see a lot of that happening too. For sure.
Victoria, go ahead, sorry.
I just was going to say, certainly the advisor community is doing that. I mean, the Stacy, Martin, Wendy, Victoria, quad, we share, and if you're out doing something, I just got back from Utah from doing the Lodge at Blue Sky, and it was every step of the way. Clients were just wanting to know each detail, and there's a lot of fright and a lot of fear and a lot of unknowns. And so documenting that and sharing that internally with clients, but broadcasting that and really going deeply with those who you care about has made a difference. It will, that trust helps us all get back on our feet faster.
For sure. There's no doubt about it. I think Zoom is a little bit unstable today, so I think there's a little hiccups in the connection, but so we apologize for the technology side of it. It's the world we're living in. So I appreciate everybody's understanding. Victoria, I wanted to dive in with you because we created kind of together the theme. There's always, when we do these talks, I always start with somebody, and then we develop the idea and we start to imagine who else can join the conversation. And that's what Victoria and I did. And I think that anybody that is in our industry is feeling the topic of this panel, which is the loss of meaning and purpose. And, you know, if you think about how many people are struggling, as Ben mentioned, you know, have lost wages, but on top of that, you lose your purpose and your meaning and your home, right? This industry isn't a job, it's a way of life. We dedicate our weekends and our holidays and, you know, nights and mornings, and, you know, everybody that's in this industry knows what we're talking about. And so there is a loss that has to be beyond the pandemic. It's an inner search thing. And I'd love to hear from you, like, how do we move forward?
Porque todas las veces que Zoom perdió el
So many
conexión.
of the players in our industry.
Well, it's absolutely true. I mean, that reeling is still going on. I think I sense everyone looking forward instead of back, and I tend to do that rather quickly. I think we all need a safe zone. What I've had to do is allow myself, and it happens to be Tuesday mornings about 6:30 with a friend. That's where I save up those negative comments. I'm never going to get through this. I don't know what's going to happen. And that is over. By the end, the coffee is finished. We're laughing, we're roaring, and it's a new week ahead. And that has been a source of sanity and sanctity. And I don't ever want to give that up. But what I have found is something, and I'll go back to a Tina conversation with Jeff Chatterton very early on, one word, empathy. And if you remembered nothing else from one of the sessions, it was empathy. And I think as I have picked up the phone, as we all have done the examples of writing that I've talked about, it's listening and instilling empathy, just understanding that this is a loss. There's a lot of sorrow out there. So go deeper and then connect. And I think it's also been a chance to turn things around. It's been, you've got a client that's just, you know, this was their 50th birthday and it was in Saint-Tropez and it was going to be so romantic and absolutely amazing. And to listen and know how sad that was for them and then turn it into something. And Ben knows this one happened to end up in, they were in Colorado and it ended up by going by helicopter to Santa Fe at the Four Seasons and landing on the empty valet parking lot that had a helicopter to, and then having a series of private events everywhere. Was it Saint-Tropez? No, but she had a brilliant birthday and we'll do that another time. It's been telling my own story of how I was supposed to be at a villa in Tuscany for a month. And since that didn't happen, thus we gave blue sky and the beautiful state of Utah a chance. And I like to say I'm very learned, and I never really put together that the state of Utah was based on the Ute history. I'm not proud of that. That's just, you need to go and spend some time in your own backyard to really understand some of the culture and pleasure that can be had there. So what I've seen, some new, very creative things with our partners. We have the best partners on the planet. And if a family wants to know what it's like at a residence in Punta Mita, they can't go there, or we can do a live broadcast. I've never done live broadcasts with clients before from destinations all over the world. So that's been really fun. And I think one of the most creative elements that it's been put into place in tandem with my partners has been to continue a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year planning, much like a financial planner, changing it up, turning things around, but actually going deep. I've probably got 6 itineraries ready for exotic travel that have been refined, and they're ready to go. We don't have dates. This is the first time I've ever done it without actual dates. But when we can go, these trips are ready, and it's given these clients who are feeling sadness and sorrow, they've got excitement and joy. There is a happiness researcher out there who says that people are the most sad they've been in 5 decades. They need to travel. It's our civic duty. So
that's very well put, and it's true. We have actually a panel coming up next month about the power of happiness, because what you're saying is very true, and it's very important. And like positivity, it's the essence. It's our engine, right? It's what keeps us moving.
Right.
So Ben, there is a threat that by the end of the year, or if this continues, that 50% of our industry might be unemployed. It's insane. It's just something that nobody ever imagined. So there we have so much talent that is displaced, and there is nobody doubts that this is going to change us and that this is going to change our industry forever. What do you think is the role of the leaders in the industry? How do we keep hope alive?
Well, there's no question we need hope, and we know that success always follows the incurable optimist, right? It's an important mental position to be in. But outside of that, I think we really do need some concrete strategy. It's great the sentiments are there, but at some point we need to actually do things. And the insight, awareness, and strategy around all the parts of the hospitality industry, I think, are essential that we bind them together. And that we stay united as an industry. It's not just travel and tourism, but it's food and beverage, it's lodging, and it's recreation. There's 4 big elements to this, and they're all affected in the same way. And I think it's sometimes a little bit difficult for us to sort of separate those. But in reality, we need strategy around all of them. I think awareness is 100% important. We know in the US, almost 40% of the unemployment, the entire unemployment in the US, is from the hospitality and leisure industry. That's a really important fact for us to really focus on as we start to look forward. We've got to gather knowledge and insight. We've got to really work out, what do people actually feel? We invest hugely in insight gathering within our company, but what do people really feel? We know there's a 60% concern level in July for COVID and what it meant for the travel industry, and that is sent by August. That's fantastic. That's a great month-on-month gain. But in reality, we also know that really no more people as a percentage traveled in August compared to July. So how can we work out how we translate those things? It was 36% of people actually traveled in each of those 2 months, according to the Skift research. So, I think that's very important. And there's so much uncertainty. When you put into play things like logistics, government regulation, general uncertainty, families coming from different parts of the world trying to convene in that beautiful residence in Punta Mita that Victoria was talking about that I would absolutely love to be in right now. We have to be realistic and analyze the information we have, and then try and learn from some successes. China this week had its very first year-on-year growth in occupancy. That's a fantastic thing for us to celebrate as an industry. Now, it's very domestic. It's not going to affect a huge amount of the US traveler, but can we learn from it, and what can we do with that? And we need to celebrate some of those things as well. And I guess the final point to that is you really need to focus on the individuals. It's easy to talk about these macro trends in the industry, but this is individual people's livelihood that we're talking about. And if we are really going to see a need to shift within the industry, what can we do to change the perception of a hospitality employee for the rest of the world's industries that are out there? How can we show that hospitality employees are actually fantastic employees that can move into a different industry? Can we capitalize on their attention to detail, their masters of everything they do, their ability to empathize in the way they do? They can look forward and read people's needs. These things translate into other industries, and they have pride and professionalism and stamina, and experience dealing with many different types of diversity that they react to very, very well. So, I would love to see us as an industry learn how we can really change the perception of the hospitality employee as just being hugely valuable going forward from here. And, I know an example of a teacher who was a trained teacher who moved to become a restaurant manager. And I think thought they were as taxed as they ever would be, dealing with the most demanding guests at the front of a restaurant, very, very busy restaurant. They've now moved back into teaching again and, looking after my kids. Good luck. I mean, I think they're going to find what demanding guest really looks like. And, when you think about that part of it, and I think about somebody who, was a fantastic logistical planner, meeting organizer, someone who pulled so many things together, who's instantly transferred their skills into the medical industry, for example, with great success. And I think we need to somehow celebrate and really embrace the quality of the employee if we are in a sort of medium-term position where we need to find some few pivots. So just some of the things I think we could do is read together.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so important because the first step is not only saying it, but the employees, the community, they need to recognize it in themselves. I remember, and I told the story before, but I was in I was part of a job opportunity with Fendi, fashion, retail. I knew nothing about Fendi. And I had an interview with the senior vice president for the Americas. And I was very, and I told her, I said, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, I've never gone into a Fendi store before this interview. I don't buy luxury. I never spend thousands of dollars on like a purse. I travel, are you kidding me? Why am I here? Because I was, and she says, Tina, everybody else that I'm interviewing thinks they know retail and they don't know retail better than Fendi does. But you're the only one here that understands the luxury consumer, and that you can teach us. Because you understand them from the moment they wake up to how they brush their teeth, that it's important to know what side of the bed they wake up, how big their shoes are, how big, you have an eye for detail, and everybody in our industry has an eye for detail, and you need to know that that's valuable. You need to know that that's unique and that that's desirable by many, many industries. And so the moment you become aware of that, then you can see your potential in anything else you do. I think Victoria said it when we were talking. It's a time to be your best form, right? Realize what's your talent, what's your skills, and go out there and make it known. Sorry, Erin, I interrupted you.
No, it's totally fine. It's a good point. I mean, what I was going to say from, my perspective as somebody who works in travel media is that I think it's such an important message to remind travelers of how much good and how much support their decision to actually go out and travel makes on the lives of these individuals who are at risk of losing their job. And you think it's a given, you think people understand that, but sometimes, that's not really how you're viewing whether or not you should be taking the vacation. The vacation starts to be something that is very much about yourself. But if you, and you sort of go back and forth on the fence, times are a bit tough, health and safety, do I want to be traveling? And if you just sort of need that nudge, I think it's always so important to remind all of the travelers out there that 10% of the global workforce is employed either directly or indirectly by travel. That means there's a lot of people's jobs at stake right now. And just simply by going, and again, traveling responsibly, making sure you're informed, being traveling within your comfort level, by simply deciding to go ahead and do that, is really supporting these individuals who need it right now more than ever. And I feel like that message should not get lost with everything going on right now. I think that is one of the most important things to remember. And, even if you can't get on that flight or take that road trip or go to that hotel, whatever it might be, think about, I live in New York City. We don't have a lot of tourists coming in right now, but I live here. I can go and I can support. I can go and have an overnight somewhere in the city. I can go and support, when Broadway comes back on, I can go to those shows. I can take the double-decker bus and I can enjoy being a tourist in my own city. So it doesn't require getting on a plane to go and support the industry and support the people that are working in it. And I think that's a really important point to remember. It's also, it's fun. I mean, you can have some fun with that. And of course, doing it within your own comfort level, like I said. But just remember, when you are deciding to go ahead and travel, you're really supporting the people that need it the most. And that's the way. Yeah.
We have a level of accountability here as well, right? Because a lot of these experiences were created around the travelers that we were bringing to destinations. So we were having people create their own businesses and invest themselves, their time, their money into creating experiences that complement the people that we were bringing to these industries. And I think it's very important economically that we support them. But it's also really important if we want travel to bounce back to the level of quality and the experience levels that we had before, we need these providers. We can't afford to reset the industry to a different level and then start trying to build up all these wonderful, really, really sort of enlightened, very personalized experiences that come particularly in remote destinations, because we haven't supported their survival during this most difficult time. So I think we do have a little bit of responsibility there as well.
Right. The industry doesn't want to lose the people that made the industry what it is.
Right.
Very much. I had a conversation with our partners all the time, right? So we're speaking to travel advisors around the world. And, we are speaking to somebody that I admire, great travel advisor, Robin Fox. And she told me, she says, maybe she is in New York. And she said, I did a staycation. I went and I checked into a hotel in Manhattan, for the weekend. She was like, it was awesome. I slept in a hotel bed. How cool is that? And it's so funny because we used to do this, I don't know how many nights a week or a month. And now we're celebrating that one experience and how much you value it and how much it means to you, how nice it is, how familiar it is. I think that, Erin, you touch on an important point. You know, there are parts of the world that are coming back to some form of normality, with some places having schools opening and some places having more of a buzz in the city, which is great. But there is kind of a thought that, and a great percentage of people that are waiting for almost like a click that, okay, click, it's over, COVID is over, we can go back to our lives. And I think that might not happen that way. You know, I think there's going to be a need to learn to coexist, because we're not going to suddenly, you know, unless the vaccine comes, which unfortunately doesn't look like it's going to come as quicker as we would like. There's going to be a movement of coexisting, of stepping out of your home. And some people, as you say, are going to do it a little earlier and a little later. But I think we still have to start to digest that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because we talked about the movement of microeconomies, and I think that plays an important role.
Sure. I mean, I think it comes back to that all important word we've already mentioned, which is trust and transparency, and being very, very upfront about how you are, you know, the initiatives that you're taking, how you're dealing with the situation. You just want people to feel safe going where they need to go. And that's how we're going to coexist safely. We need to get to a point where people aren't sort of cowering in their homes and they're too afraid because this vaccine doesn't exist. Like I keep saying, everybody's level is different. Everybody's safety level is different. So people will move at different speeds. But if every part of the industry shows that we are working together, that we are taking as many precautions as we possibly can, that we are taking initiative and making you feel better, then that individual is eventually going to get to the point where they do feel safe to go out. And you know what happens once they go out once? They go out a second time. And when they get on that first plane trip, that first plane trip turns into a second, a third, a fourth, and a 10th. So it's really about getting people over that hurdle. And the way you do that is by staying communicative and staying very, very honest and transparent.
Yeah. And it's so true. Go ahead.
So no, I was going to say, I took my first international flight this week for 6 months, by far the longest I've ever not gone on an airplane. I think my previous record was 6 days. And I spent a lot of time earlier on this week with people from the airline industry, just talking about the different parts of the protocols that they're going through and how we compare and contrast them to our industry. And it's so reassuring to see that the talk is absolutely matched by the walk, and the efforts that they talk about and the passion and the care that their staff have to deliver this. It's evident right throughout the chain. And we do talk about that. You know, once somebody leaves their home, if any part of this chain breaks down, we all lose.
Yeah.
So us even being able to learn across contributors within our industry of what are you doing and why, and taking responsibility for it, I think is really, really hugely powerful. And I've seen the industry really come together to share that strength much more in the last few months. And it's been reassuring to me.
Mm-hmm. It is. And, you know, I was recently, and it's exactly what Erin said. 2 weeks ago, I was in the DR and I spent 2 weeks at Casa de Campo. And the week before that, I was in Miami at East Miami. And it's that thing that, you know, you feel like the monster when you're staying in your room, the door's closed and the monster outside gets bigger and bigger, and your imagination gets worse and worse, and you don't want to open the door. And it's like the monster in the bed. And then you step out and you face it, and it starts getting smaller and smaller. And you're like, I can deal with this. This is doable, you know, with a lot of responsibility and care and respectful in relation to other people. And it was an amazing experience. You know, if you look at the DR right now, what they're doing, it's incredible. I mean, the government, if you get COVID while you're in the Dominican Republic as a tourist, the government will cover your medical, your hotel stay, and your change of air, taken care of by the Dominican Republic. I mean, that's incredible. You know, that's a positive move towards incentivizing and appreciating the importance of travel.
Right. And an important investment in the industry as well. And I think that's another thing that we've seen come together, you know, to generate trust. One of the barriers to trust is typically the financial transaction, let's be honest, right? And it creates a level of reticence to make a commitment. And obviously, we were very, very generous with all of our cancellation and attrition policies during this process, but so have the rest of the industry been as well. And it's really much more of a forward thinking, let's just get people traveling. Let's find what the barriers are, break down every single one we possibly can, and not get too caught up in principle if it doesn't actually help the industry as a whole.
For sure. And I think, go ahead, Victoria.
I mean, we're hearing it. We're all saying the same. I mean, we all feel that ability to get out there and show them. And I think that is important. You've got to have the leaders who do it. It's not everyone is at the same place. Not everyone will listen, but it's taking those clients who are asking you those questions and showing you and being leaders with that. And I mean, in the hotels, as Ben knows, you've got to play to that most. I mean, people have created cocoons at home. You've got to play to that most afraid person who's there, right? But you're going to have all ends of the spectrum while you're there. You've got the person, who has to have the taped room, who has to have everything in under the, but you'll have people who absolutely want to go be normal, as they put it. So I saw this in place. I was in San Diego at Grand Hotel, or at the Hotel Coronado, to see the beach villas and doing some live broadcasting for them. And I mean, it was just, people are at all ends of the spectrum. We've created cocoons at home, and I think hotels have to still be able to create a bit of that when people get there.
Sure.
For sure. And we talked about storytelling, and Victoria, it seems that there's a desire for travel designers to create stories that add meaning and purpose back to the lives of others. And that adds even a bigger responsibility, because they're trying to find, as a travel advisor, you're trying to find purpose and meaning in your life. And then you have to not just have a checklist kind of itinerary, you have to build a story that delivers purpose to the traveler, who's also, looking for that purpose. So what are the key ingredients to these stories?
I do think storytelling is a massive part of it has been for 40 plus years. And I will attribute some of that to my family that insisted we all 7 of us sit at the table, and no one got to get up until we were finished with the meal, and everyone had to participate and tell stories. I still kind of use some of those skills. Thanks, Mom. And but what I'm finding, I mean, you're not, when you want someone to buy, it's just like Ben hears this all the time. We don't want a hotelier to come in and tell us about the square footage of their rooms, and we don't want to have. We're like, what could you tell us some of the? What are the things the concierge say to do? What connects you to this destination? List some of the experiences. So it's not. You're not just you're not highlighting a list of what to do at a certain place. It comes back to those connections. And because I have been in this industry so very long, and it's the people everywhere. I mean, I've been very, very blessed to have been to 92 countries. Like I said, missing a little bit of the United States, but I'm working on that. What's great, everywhere I've been moved to tears. It's been because of people. And whether that's Northern Thailand or Botswana or Peru, those stories are deep in here. And I know it's successful because I've had colleagues come up to me with their credit card when I've gotten off the phone, and they're like, sign me up for that trip. So it's a matter of just getting so much joy and excitement of explaining of how it can feel and what that personal experience did to you. And they can tell that's coming from your soul. That comes through. That's not something you read in something. So I think perfecting your storytelling and really understanding what works for you is great. I've been working with some young advisors consulting during the last 6 months. They've wanted to improve their businesses, and we've been able to get deep into each one of them as to what's in their psyche and what connects. And maybe that's what you should be selling. When, as Tina Lero would put it, when you've got glitter in your voice, that's when we know that you're selling the right way. So that's what I like to say, is find the emotions, the experiences, those pieces that will connect you to the people.
And be passionate. And I can tell you, Victoria was going on a business brainstorming trip with Wendy, and she was writing to me about it, and the passion that came through. I was in the
Yes,
I know, but it sounds so cool, So I think passion, when you're passionate about something, it's contagious. People feel attracted to it. They want to be part of it, It goes back to that happiness, positivity, energy, it's so, so important.
So if we're in the right business, if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, that passion should be there. And those stories should just, in your way, not my way. Don't do it the way I would do it. If everyone can get to their own center as to what that story is, that's the most fun and most exciting piece.
For sure, no doubt. And Four Seasons, and I know you've lived there for many, many years and been, part of it, you breathe it, and it's a fantastic company. And I know, having worked at Four Seasons, how important training is and development and motivating. It's all part of the fundamental core company as they take care of their employees. And I think it's fundamental for anybody moving forward, right, to feel that motivation and right now especially to transform and think out of the box. It's, at the beginning of this storm, a lot of people were investing their time into, learning something new or, get into a free course. And as the time went by, people lost steam. You kind of go, oh, gosh, I'm exhausted by it. What's the key? How do we keep it? Because there is a fundamental importance to it, right?
Yeah. Well, sourdough bread is, I think, the key to just about everything. It seems to be everything I read and watched. But outside of that, I think, it's training and learning used to be interchangeable, right? We used to see them as one and the same thing. And I think training loses a little bit of its value when you don't have clearly defined goals, you don't have a timeline, you don't have reporting, you don't have measurement. And I think that probably is something that in this world where the landscape is changing every minute, it's tough to really come up with that. I mean, there are exceptions to it. I look at the training that we've done with our consulting agreement with Johns Hopkins, for example. It's very exact training to get more than 90 hotels reopened in a relatively short amount of time. Perspective, getting our staff connected to things, I think it probably is a little bit more about learning. And funnily enough, it's coming back to something that we talked about earlier, and that's really defining purpose. What is our purpose within the industry? What's our purpose as individuals? It's funny, I read an article that Kendrick Lamar was talking about what his purpose is. And I was expecting it to be something, why does he rap? And he said it's to make people feel good about themselves. And it was such a shock to read that and to hear that was his purpose and why he's a rapper. It seemed a little bit brand to me, but I found it quite exciting that at that point we can maybe think about that in our industry. Can our purpose be leave it better than we found it? Can we really focus on that? And, I think maybe we can. And I think motivating all of our teams will come from getting them rallied behind a common purpose. Really focus on the joys that travel can bring, the communities that we serve. Proudly welcoming people into their hotel and feeling like it's part of their home, that sense of a deeper purpose and back to, something maybe it's a little bit more sustainable might be important for us. And, celebrating some stories. I remember when we first heard about COVID and SAS, Scandinavian Airlines, retrained 10,000 of their staff that were on furlough to work in the medical industry. Opportunity and such a wonderful thing to do in Sweden, a country that managed to organize itself at that time around a specific need, and training really worked from that. But back to your question, how do we survive? I think the survival will probably come from accepting that surviving doesn't mean getting it back to exactly how it used to be before, but maybe we like what the new survival is a little bit more, and maybe the world will look back a little bit more fondly on what we survived into versus just perpetuating the sort of the rat run that we were on before, as we saw the industry grow every month. So,
wow, beautifully put. So true. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. And being ready for, I think together with hope, it's important for us to realize that the same way that we shut down, I think the world might start to open up, in a much more quicker and, even more positive way than we expected. South Africa, at one point, we thought wouldn't open up till 2021. I mean, it was kind of like we're closed. And now, 1st of October, it looks like they're going to open to a number of countries. Like, things can go one way, but they can go back the other way too, And I think that the U.S. is looking at opening up, and there is ways that people, there is a desire to travel. And I think it is an important to our DNA. It's part of who we are. We can do with a lot of things. We can do with maybe without our office space. We can do without the commute. We can do without. But I think that when it comes to personal connection and when it comes to experiencing a culture, a different view, living as snorkeling and looking at a reef or getting in touch with an indigenous community, you can't replace that. You can't do without. That's who we are. you know?
Travel had a really positive role in all of our lives. And I think sometimes it's harder. Everybody here has been affected, and probably many of the people watching this have been deeply affected by it. And I think we need to accept this was it was uplifting to us. It was what enabled us to be connected as we've traveled around the world to our families. Quite often it was a reward for some really, really hard work that we put in. And this is not happening right now. And I think part of accepting how we sort of heal and move on is to understand that we were deeply affected by that, to a slightly deeper level than probably we were aware when we were enjoying this beautiful travel experience that was our previous state, if you like.
Very, very true. And so when I get to this point that we're getting to the end of the talk, which is always sad, but I always ask a question that I try to get everybody to summarize their thoughts and leave the audience with a little seed in their mind for them to kind of chew on over the weekend or beyond. And so if everybody were to forget everything that we just said and you wanted to leave them with a message, Erin, I'll start with you. What would that be?
Okay, my message right now would be that, yes, travel has certainly enriched all of our lives. I'm hoping that very soon it will continue to enrich all of our lives. But right now, travel has been hit so hard, and I really, really do believe that travel is such an important part of the solution in nursing the global economy back to health. Like I said, I certainly don't want anybody to travel in a way that feels irresponsible or unsafe, but educate yourself and understand the measures that the industry, from the great travel specialists to the great hotel brands to the cruise lines, understand the measures they're taking, the things they are doing to make sure you can travel as safely as possible right now. And if you're on the fence about whether you should get out there or whether you shouldn't get out there, does it feel right to take a vacation? There's this even talk about like vacation shaming on Instagram, which is kind of bizarre. Think about the positive and the good that making the decision to go out and spend some money and inject some money into the tourism industry can have for those that are being most affected by it.
And if you have time, go on Condé Nast Traveler Facebook and you'll watch a video of Erin telling her story of where she's lived. And she has it's worthwhile watching it. It's fantastic. And you say something that is very nice. You say travel is only ever a good thing. It's really the only time you get to properly understand the world that you actually live in. I'm not talking about the city you live in or the country you live in. I'm talking about the global community. And that's brilliant. So if you have time, please watch that video. It's short and sweet, and you get to know a little bit more about Erin. My team does research, Victoria, give us your message.
The world is at an unhappy place. The way to solve that is get out on plan a trip or plan several, right? Take the time to go deeper with all elements that are in your camp. That's your family, your friends, your partners, your colleagues. Share and trust. Share as deeply with all of those components, and that the richness of that is very, very powerful. I'm never changing that. And again, my mantra is we're all in this together. This is a community, and we're going to get through it as a community, not as competitors.
Yeah. Beautifully put. And it's, again, that collaboration is such an important and beautiful message. And I think it's going to hopefully change the way most of us work, and not only in our industry, but in many other industries. Ben, no pressure. You can take it home.
Well, it's funny, so reflecting all of those things, looking back and looking forward, the travel industry has made so many wonderful memories for so many people. When you look back at special occasions, the things that really stimulated your mind and your brain at a particular time, so often, stimulated by travel experiences. So really remembering that as we start to see what gap are we looking to fill in our lives looking forward, and book something in the future. Having something to look forward to right now is, I think, hugely important for everybody. Having something in the calendar. We need to support our travel industry. We need to support our travel advisors. And part of that is to make a commitment. We know that we have a lot of flexibility around that commitment. It's a really beautiful commitment to make because it gives you the emotional part, but there's no true penalty for the changing world that we're in. So I think certainly to focus on those two things. And let's not miss this opportunity, right? There's diversity prevalent in our industry that I think offers us a huge opportunity for us to lead that side of what's happening in the world right now. Can we create some meaningful change in the recruitment world, in the development of talent now, and really representing the demographics that exist in our industry? And can we use this opportunity to, as we see how affected and how huge the hospitality and the tourism industry is right now by everything that's going on, that tells us the might and the power of the industry when we come back. And let's try and harness that into doing some things that give us a more lasting legacy, not just in the diversity field, which is hugely important and a passionate part of our world, but also into things like some of the very challenging climate change that we're seeing right now that to me is equally a threat and very, very worrying to us as we seek to create more experiences.
So very, very true. And I hope that we all do that. And I think that there is, the moment you step out, the monster gets smaller. And I'm happy to say, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be in Turks and Caicos from the beautiful beach enclave property. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing dear friends that I've had a chance to when I used to live there, Vasco and all of these people. So it's so important. Travel reconnects people, it's beautifully done. And if you can join us again next week, we're going to have a very special panel. We have Mark, the founder of Auberge Resorts, joining us. Patrick Freeman, who is the president of Cisneros Real Estate. He's going to be talking a very interesting story, Ben, about the Four Seasons and the DR, which is a very, very interesting. Familiar with it, but it's worth tuning in. And Laurent, who's the co-founder and CEO of Tablet Hotels. So thank you again for joining us. I can't tell you how enriching it is, how motivating, how I feel inspired every time we do these talks. And I value your time. I know we're all at home between family and work and trying to balance everything. So Victoria, Ben, Erin, thank you for joining us. Everybody that was able to watch, again, subscribe and share it. Let's make this, a viral positive wave. And I wish everybody a fantastic weekend wherever you are. Plan your trip and let's get back to it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our hard times often lead to our greatest moments, remembering that adversity brings people together.
While no one chooses to go through this kind of stress and anxiety, there will be things that come out of it and opportunities that we can't see today.
That's a powerful motivator, isn't it? To no longer take life for granted.
I define wealth by the lives that I touch. I feel like really one of the wealthiest people in our industry.
Travel is a force for good. We believe it's a connector. We believe it's vital to democracy.
That kind of stress and conflict does bring people together. A common danger unites even the bitterest of enemies.
Listen more carefully and talk less. I often fail, but when I do it, I love the results I experience.
Some people say it feels like the world has frozen, has stopped. Somehow, for some of us, it feels like it's spinning quicker than ever before.